Here we go on question number 4 then. So, really got to dig into our toolbox. Every time we're looking at a question, we've got to look for clues, what techniques might work. So let's read this question. The sum of the first 5 terms of an arithmetic sequence is 35. Maybe let's just make a note of that. Sum of the first 5 terms is 35. And then the sum of the next 5 terms is 85. Well, if we kind of think of that in a diagram, I always like to draw a diagram, kind of think about what's going on. There's my first 5 terms, and they add up to 35. These next ones add up to 85. Now, at the moment, I'm thinking, how am I going to find the first term? How am I going to find the common difference here? I need a bit more. Well, what I can do is I'm dealing with the sum of n terms of an arithmetic sequence. So I'm thinking, let's try this formula. Let's try substituting into this formula here. The reason I'm going to use that one is because I don't have the last term of the sequence. So I do have some n's and I do have some n minus 1's. I don't have the first term yet, I don't have d, but let's see what we can do by substituting into that formula in a second. Now before I do that, a very useful bit of information. If the sum of the first 5 is 35 and the sum of the next 5 is 85, I can tell that the sum of the first 10 is this plus this. So I can say that the sum of the first 10 terms is going to be 120, because I add those all together. Now that is going to be very useful, because now I've got some extra values I can substitute into these formulas, and maybe I'll be able to make a formula with one unknown, or perhaps I'll be able to make 2 equations with 2 unknowns and form a simultaneous equation. If I've got enough information to form 2 equations with 2 unknowns, I can probably get to a solution here. So let's try it. Let's take this first piece of information. The sum of the first 5 terms is 35. Let's plonk that into a formula. So S5 equals n over 2. Well, n is 5 here. Brackets 2 times the first term. We don't know the first term. Plus n minus 1. In that case, it is d. It's 4 multiplied by d. And there we go. We've got an equation there for S5. Now, it still has 2 unknowns, U1 and D. So I'm going to need to form a second equation, and that's where this information is going to come in really helpful. So the sum of the first 10 terms, substitute them in here again. There's n is 10. Then I've got 2u1 plus, and n minus 1 is going to be 9 this time. There we go. So now I've got 2 equations, and I should be able to use those to form some simultaneous equations that I can solve. Let's just tidy this up a bit. So I'm going to go for 5 over 2 times 2. That is the same as 5. So I've got 5u1. And then I've got plus 4 divided by 2 is 2, times 5 is 10. And that, the sum of the first 5 terms, equals 35. This one, we're going to get 10u1 plus, and then we go 4.5 times 10, I think that's 45d. And that all adds up to 120. So we've got some simultaneous equations there that I can solve. And I think probably the easiest thing to do will be to make the u's the same. So I'm going to double all of that first equation. I'm going to take this first equation, times 2 times 2 times 2. Hopefully this is revision of simultaneous equations. If you have no idea what's going on, then worth looking up simultaneous equations. So I'm doubling everything in the top one, so it's still a true statement, and then the bottom one, now I'm going to call that A, and I'm going to call that B, and I'm going to say, let's do B minus A, and I get 45, well 10 minus 10 is nothing, 45 minus 20, that's 25D, 120 minus 70 is 50, and hey, we've got D equals 2 by dividing by 25 there. All right, we've found the common difference. We're partway there. Now I need the first term. Well, if the common difference is D, we can just substitute that back into any one of our equations. I could substitute it in here, I could substitute it in here, I could substitute it in here, I could substitute it in here. Any one of these is going to lead me to the right solution. So let's just take, I don't know, I like this one. Let's substitute in there. So I've got 5 times u1 plus 10 times the common difference, which we now know is 2, equals 35. 5 times the first term plus 20. Take away the 20 and we get 5u1 equals 15. And therefore, divide by 5, the first term equals 3. The first term is 3, the common difference is 2. And I suppose we could check that. We could write out a sequence going 3, add 2 is 5, add 2 is 7, add 2 is 9, add 2 is 11. We could check that. All of that adds up to the first 5 terms added up to 35. So let's try 8 plus 5, that's 15, 24, 35. It does all add up to 35. I think we've got the right answer here. So there we go. A lot of things we had to look out for. Use all of those tools in your toolbook. Can I form a couple of equations where there's only 2 unknowns? That was the key there, and then I could use simultaneous equations. All right.